you 18 months ago retired. You thought you were going to retire. And
I thought I was done. Years and years of doing all the, 120 plus, 145 one year. And I did that because I always thought it would come to an end. And I didn't know when, but it could be like tomorrow. And then it never did collapse. And I'm like, somebody's got to put a stop to this. I'm going to do it myself. And
when did you realize that you were going to get back into the game?
stand-up comedy, to really get all you can get out of it, it needs to be polished. I'm sure people go, hey, he did the same set. That's to you, I did the same set. To me, I'm trying to figure out where every little pause has the most impact. Really figuring out how to not just get laughs, but murder. The only person that ever asked me to quit doing a bit, and I did.
Did you share that?
No.
Okay.
I guess I can. Yeah, it's true too. I did a joke that ate it the other night. I was so completely wrong about it. I was positive that it was going to be 2 laughs, house laugh on the setup, and then the punchline was going to bring down the house. Not a peep. 250 people agreed 100% that it was not funny.
Well, it was our money that we were trading. And so I had 2 other partners, and so we provided the capital. But we had a team of traders, which I was a part of, and we would trade that capital, and then the individual traders would get a percentage of that. You know, we provided the capital, so we got a percentage, and then they got a percentage. And so when we lost money, like, we're losing our money. You know, so we didn't have customers. We were on the floor, like, for us.
I didn't even know that's how it worked. I don't know anything about
Some
that.
people go in and execute trades for other people, or they will, as you were kind of alluding to, like, they'll be trading other people's money. Absolutely, there's that. We didn't have that. It was ours, which was great.
So can anybody just go down there? What do you have to do to get on the floor?
You know, back in the day, you needed to buy a seat, not technically like a physical seat, but you buy like a seat to trade. It could cost anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million. It just depends on what the market was at that time. You buy that, you can go down on the floor and trade whatever you want. I don't recommend going in without knowing what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
But, you know, there are people who started out that way and learned
right
the hard way, you know, but it was, you just go through those experiences. Probably not that unlike when, you know, you guys all have the common, I'm guessing, the common experience of bombing. Maybe bombing several times, being unprepared, whatever that is. And so that's not something I am familiar with.
Well, the common experience is that in the green room is that we all made the same life choices that ended us up in that green room. You know, so you have a lot in common with those guys. It's the same on the floor. Your life experiences throughout your life led you to the same spot. And, you know, and it's really I think the camaraderie with those guys that's important. You know, they do understand me better than most people do, and I understand them better than most people do. And it'd be the same on that floor, right?
Totally.
And so, yeah, I kind of forget how important that tribal thing is. You know, how you really have to have people to interact with. And, you know, last night I was tempted kind of to stay home, and, you know, Jeannie's out of town and with my dog. And then I'm like, nah, I'm going to get dressed and go down to the club and, you know, hang out in the green room. And it's crowded up there on Mondays because he lets everybody in the green room. Normally it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to scold the young comics, but I keep them in line. I told them that.
Yeah, what's that look like?
Well, I mean, they're just really loud and they get packed in there. And I want to watch it on television because the balcony's packed. And I told them that last week. I said, hey, listen, you guys get to stay in the green room and until you upset me or pester me. And right now you need to shut up so I can watch television. And they would just shut up and watch television.
Great.
They know I have the power to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would never do it. And last night I told them, hey, shut up, please. I'm trying to watch this. But they know I have stature in the club. And they're like, yes, sir, Mr. White.
And also you understand the dynamics of that. Like you have the awareness, like what's happening right now is not what's supposed to be happening. So you guys are new to this. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, we'll let you in for a minute. Yeah, you know how to act.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They I've got that job as the elder statesman of the club, which I embrace. I like it fine. They need to know what I know. You know, they're all trying to get to where I got to and go through what I went through. So I really do have some knowledge about something for once in my life that other people might be able to use. I'm perfectly okay with that. I know I'm old. I know that, but I also know that I've been around and I've done it and I've done it right. And, you know, I know that they want to go through a really similar experience than, you know, as me. And so I can give them some solid advice.
I'm guessing they're receptive to it, right?
Yeah, very. I mean, I guess, unless they talk about me behind my back.
Yeah,
did he try to talk to you? Trying to teach him lessons? That might be going on, but I think for the most part they're afraid of me. They're nervous around me. They're not afraid of me. I don't know how to say that, but I make them nervous.
Well, you actually, I could, if I had to guess, like you're kind of the guy who talks softly and carries a big stick. Like you're not loud and telling people what, but you have a presence where they're like, I don't want to upset dad because like dad's chill right now.
Right.
But if I fucking poke the bear, like there's a side that I'm not going to like.
Yeah. Nobody pokes me. So, but you know what? It's all now, and all those people are in there on Monday. They don't get to go in there on Tuesday. Or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or Saturday. You get to go in on Monday because they're working on Tony's show. And, but if you're not one of the top comics in the US, you don't go in there on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday because Joe's there. And when Joe's there, it's really restrictive of who gets to go in the green room. And that's what's good about it is because there's not a bunch of noise. You know, there's 8 people, you know, there's nobody's wife or girlfriend or boyfriend is in there. It's just us. And we just talk about comedy and laugh and have a good time. But what makes it good is that it's not full of people and you can hear, especially me, you know, and it makes, you know, it adds the part of my life that's really important to me.
Well, yeah, you've talked to me about this a number of times, which was so resonant of that brotherhood and sisterhood. I know there are some female comics there, but in that green room is just having that tribe. And there's a lot of comedy and stuff that happens there, but I'd have to guess that there's some shit coming up and, you know, maybe not you're saying it's all 8 people, but like, there's a space for you to share like some shit you're going through.
Yeah, you know, there is. I don't know how often that gets done. I mean, I lost my mom, so people were, and I grieved so hard, and but you know, my boys were, you know, helping me, you know, make it through that, and so. You know, you don't want to bring something petty up in there because you'll get your ass ridden. But if you lose your mom, you know. Well,
petty could create some great content for someone. So right. There's always the benefit of that.
And I think that's one of the things we're all looking for too. We definitely help each other, right? You know, if we see something, you know, nobody's afraid to bring it up, and everybody's receptive to hearing it. You know, and especially me. And if somebody can help me, great, help me. I mean, I'm not the only comedy writer in the room. So somebody gave me a tag. One of my opening acts gave me a tag that's the biggest laugh in my show. And that's fine with me.
Which one is it?
It was one of the callbacks to the skating thing. That's It was
on the bus.
It was about shaving the dog. It's that part of it. I sat on the couch and put on my skates and It's the biggest laugh in the show. And I don't care that I didn't write it.
Yeah.
I wrote the first one and he figured out where that callback should be. And at dinner that night, I slipped him $500. I'm like, good eye, bud. Good eye, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
and then he kept trying it again. I'm like, you got lucky, dude. Don't bother me. Don't pester me with it. You got one. I got it. I got you.
Yeah. Don't make me regret it.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about what's happening specifically at the Mothership and then in Austin. And there's like this comedy renaissance that's happened. And it feels like it's a special moment in time that, you know, we as a community get to experience. Unfortunately, not as much as we did maybe 9-10 months ago, because so many people are coming to the city to go to the Mothership and experience comedy. So it's a little tougher to get tickets. But what's happening, it just feels like, do you remember anything of this magnitude? Because it feels like a shift. Is there a shift going on? Like this has become the capital, the comedy capital of the world.
Yeah. Well, you know, as a stand-up comic, you have to stay busy. So you need a place to work out, you know, and that's so people live in LA or New York because you can go do multiple sets a night. But in Austin right now, I think there's 7 or 8 comedy clubs, and that can't even be said, I don't think, in LA. Not comedy clubs. They might do comedy in some of them, but you know, it's a perfect spot for people that are more focused on stand-up comedy than they are acting. If stand-up is a pathway to get you somewhere you want to go, I don't think Austin necessarily is for you, because if you want television and movies, that's really just LA, you know? So, but if you decide that, hey, I'm really a stand-up comedian, then you need stage time and you need all you can get. And it doesn't matter who you are or how long you've been doing it. You need it all. You need all of you can get. So there is no better place than Austin, Texas for that. And I know that I was getting on a plane the other day. I was taking Southwest somewhere, and I don't fly a lot of Southwest. And I got there too late to get on the early boarding thing. So I was about to get bamboozled to the back of the Southwest flight. And I got a text saying, go over and talk to somebody. Just tell them you're pre-board. And I went over there, and the guy goes, you're wrong. Were you in town to Kill Tony? Anybody that's on the Kill Tony show gets a free upgrade to or early access to the plane. I'm like, look at this, you know, and it's also cool that it's not about me, you know.
Yeah.
It's about Joe and Tony, and it's about all of us. But now I was the one that brought the idea up to Joe to maybe think about Austin, because I knew he was fed up and I knew he liked to hunt, you know, and so Austin's just a fun town, you know. It's a great place to live. And then when Tony came to town, I gave him my condo and one of my cars for 2 weeks because I was leaving town, and I really wanted Tony here.
Yeah.
And he was there with his gorgeous girlfriend, and I just threw him the keys to all of it and said, you guys have fun. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And
yeah.
That was my aggressive way of
it's a little sales pitch. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So you got to taste Austin for a minute, you know.
Well, Joe, I mean, I don't listen to all of his episodes, but I've probably heard him mention no less than 8 to 10 times giving you like full credit for getting him there. He just always talks about it, and he has so much love and affection and appreciation for who you are, all the work you've done. And it's just being a friend of yours, like when I hear that, it's like warm inside. I'm like, that's just so cool, because Rogan's Rogan. Like, he's a big deal, you know? And to have him, and he also seems to, I mean, I don't know him, but he really seems to care about people and wants to be a good person. And like, he's a guy that lives in his heart too, as much of a man as he is.
Yeah, it's he uses his power for good. He built that club for all of us, and he spent a lot of money doing it. There's nothing about that club that's not 100% perfect, but he needed it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's fine. It doesn't make any less generous, and I swear it fits me so well. It feels like he built it for me.
Yeah.
And
what is it about it that's different than maybe other experiences you've had?
Well, I mean, you gotta, a lot of the comedy clubs that I did early on, especially, you could open a comedy club for $60,000. You could, all you needed was a cooler and a stage and some cheap chairs. You're in business.
Yeah.
And so most of them were, but you also don't need more than that necessarily to do it. All you need is a really good comic, and they got to be able to hear him, and then it's a comedy club. So, but Joe had seen it all. He toured for a long time, and so he had a vision in his head. But the key to it is that it's got 2 rooms, and they both sell out twice a night. So as a comic, I can go down there as one of the very privileged comics that gets to do whatever I want to, whenever I want to.
Which is saying a lot, because there's a roster of, I would say, I don't know, you know better than me, but like 10 quote unquote regulars who are at a certain level. And so for you to just walk in and be like, yeah, I want to do 3 sets tonight. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So there's 4 to be had. So, and I rarely do that. And I really try not to be a pig about it, because I know that as it gets more crowded. Now there's the beautiful thing is there's other clubs for everybody else too. And I don't work the other clubs. And I also turned down both Moody buildings this year.
Oh, no shit.
The big one and the small. Yeah, because I want Austin to be what it is to me now, which is a place where I can just go play the 250 seat room, but I can do it all the time and still have the impact of doing material you haven't heard. And, but I like what it is, and I don't want to sell it in bigger pieces.
Oh,
not Austin. Anywhere else I would, but not Austin. If you want to see me in Austin, you got to go to the Mothership. And somebody asked me the other day, well, why don't you go? I'm like, well, if they ever build a comedy club between the Mothership and the Little Boy and the Fat Man, I might play that one. But those are my 2 favorite rooms in the country, and so I just don't walk out of the building.
And so for people who've never been or don't kind of understand how it works, you'll go up and you'll do a 15-minute set where you're when you do a theater arena, it's an hour long. And so I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is for people to be coming to the Mothership, they're going to get 15 minutes, and it's going to be varied depending on what you want to work on that night. And so they're not going to get the full 1 hour, so they can keep coming back and feel like they're getting
right. And you'll have somebody doing a long set at the end, and
yes.
sometimes that's me. In fact, it is tonight. So I'll do the long set at the end of the first show. I'm pretty sure.
Heck
and
yeah.
So yeah, it's also where stand-up comedy needs to be. To really get all you can get out of it, it needs to be polished. And so that's what I call a polishing room, both of them. So I'll do a 15-minute set, and not that I read complaints, but I'm sure people go, hey, he did the same set. That's to you, I did the same set. To me, I'm trying to figure out where every little pause has the most impact. Now, it looks like I'm just on stage talking and shooting the shit, but I'm not. I am totally not. I am working. And I am trying to beat you to death, and you want to get beaten to death. So, when I came back from the pandemic, I didn't have that power, the same power I did before the pandemic. I couldn't generate it. And I didn't know why. And it was because of the minutia. It was because I wasn't doing stand-up, and now I'm doing stand-up every day, it seems. And that's what it takes to find that little bit that really makes a crowd pop is in the polish. I've figured out. And so if there are some people that go to the mothership like every week.
I was doing that last year.
Yeah. And that's not what it's there for, you know, because you got guys that are working on these bits. So you'll see it and you'll see it again. Now, I know Tony, and Tony works it more than I do, and he changes it up a lot. And so do most of them. But I open with the same joke almost all the time because it doesn't work in another spot. It's the best joke I ever wrote.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a public service announcement. You don't even know the show's started. That's how good that joke is.
So good.
And so then and that condensed 15 minutes is kind of that just expands to an hour, you know, because there's like 3 or 4 callbacks in the 15-minute set, and there's 4 or 5 to the same thing in an hour-long set, but they're all just spread out. Yeah. And so it's the fun work is polishing and really figuring out how to not just get laughs, but murder. And I would have to say that everybody up there is getting better, you know, including me, including Joe. You know, Joe does the long sets all the time, and Joe's just a hammer, man. And he follows, God, the other night it was me and Shane Gillis and Theo Vaughn and Tom Segura and Joe Rogan and Tony, and all in one room, you know, one show. If you try to put that show together and charge for it, it'd be as unobtainable as the moon, you know. But at the mothership, that kind of magic happens. And, you know, and I'll get through with a set that I don't think anybody else can follow. And then I'll see it's Shane Gillis. And I'm like, yeah, Shane can follow anything. All he has to do is get that grin on his face. People just fall over and start barking, you know.
It is amazing. Like you said, like to try to put that together, you spend, you know, $55 to get in the club, and you get to see that roster that you just said on a given night. It's not every night. I mean, there's other comics there, but when
it's strong every night, you know, that's a hard room to get on, you know, you gotta, and it's going to get harder and harder, you know, as people move here, because, you know, that list of guys that I just named, and Kreischer spends a lot of time here, and
it's Brian Simpson, and then you've got Hassan and Derek who are doing their thing, and
right, and everybody's strong, and everybody's getting better. Everybody's using that room. You know, it's like a gym. You go down there and work out, and if you don't do it, you don't grow, and if you do, you do. So, and it works for everybody.
What would you say the next club would be where these top comedians, like as more start coming here, like where would the next place be where they would like be able to get these sets and reps in? Like like if you had to
LA or New York, that's it.
But I'm saying in Austin.
Oh, in Austin?
People are moving to Austin, right? Comics are moving to Austin.
Yeah, they are.
It's getting harder. I mean, you're going on when you want.
Well,
everyone has.
You got the Cap City Comedy Club, but they usually bring people from out of town. But they got open mic nights, and then you got there's Creek in the Cave, and then the Sunset Room, the Velveeta Room's right across the street, and Rogan didn't even know that was there. I'm like, yeah, there's a comedy club right across the street from your comedy club, but it's like a 65-seater, and you know, a little bitty tiny thing, but they're all over town, and most of the guys, or a lot of I don't know what they do. I just about made something up, but. I don't know if Segura and I don't know if those guys go over to the Sunset Room or not. And
I guess that's the question. Like Tom and Bert and, you know, aren't necessarily regulars on the show.
Yeah, especially Bert. Now, Tom lives down on the lake. You know, so he's down there quite a bit. I talked to Tom yesterday. But then they're also all busy. You know, those are the top touring comics in the U.S. You know, they're all arena acts. And So I'm kind of lucky that I did a bunch of work early in the year and I don't have anything else to do. And now I can do it for the sheer love of doing it. You know, I literally don't have to do a thing. And I think if Joe hadn't built that club, I would be a sad man right now because I would be out of comedy for sure.
Well, you, 18 months ago, retired. I have quotation marks here. You thought you were going to retire.
And I thought I was done.
And Rogan famously said, I'm not going to your party because you're not retiring and building this club. He was going to open it up, 3-4 months later. And he's like, you're going to be there. You're going to be doing sets. And that's what happened. Now, when did you realize that you weren't really
He likes being right too.
Yeah, well, he's done a good job. When did you realize that you were going to get back into the game? Unretire?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I got offered 3 dates, for a big pile of money. And so I thought that I would do that and see if it was fun. But I had to get myself in shape to do those shows, to do that long hour set. Because I wasn't doing any long sets. I was just doing 15-minute sets and having fun and no agenda, no plan at all. Just at that time, I was just going to not do comedy on the road. And
just going to work at the
market. And also Rogan pays comics. So
yeah, how's that different than other clubs?
Here I'll give you an example. If I do a set at the Comedy Store, well, I'll be even more candid than if I do a set at a casino, it's $125,000. If I do one at the Comedy Store, it's $35. So they get quite a discount of $124,000. I don't know. It's a big discount. But it's a showcase club and you need those sets, right? So they don't have to pay you anything. And I never picked up one of the checks. I have a stack of checks this thick at the Comedy Store to this day because I just didn't need the $35. But in Joe's club, if I do a 15-minute set in the main room, he pays me $1,200.
Jeez.
And if I go on last, he pays me like $8,000. And you can't make over $35 in New York or LA. I think, no, with Comedy Cellar, they pay $50 for sets during the week and $100 on the weekend.
Ooh.
And people live on it. I mean, there's so many sets that you can do in LA, in New York, that you can scrape by a living and never leave the city, and people do it, and I guess. And that's the same thing here. You can make a living in Austin doing stand-up comedy, and that's a rare thing, and you don't have to leave. If you're in with Joe, but Joe pays the guy, the doorman, more than that just to quit doing their job as a doorman and go up there and do a set, which they're lucky to be able to do.
Wow.
He pays them more money than the store or it's like $100 a set. Just to stop your job and go up there and make an extra $100 and get to do stand up, which is what you want to do anyway. And that's why you work there as a doorman. So it's 80% of the door goes to the comics. And that was nobody's idea but Joe Rogan. He always felt like, why not treat comics fair? Why not acknowledge that we're in the comedy business and nothing matters but the comedians.
Yeah.
That's one thing that was hip about the Comedy Store is they have a parking lot that holds about 40 cars. They don't let any customers park there. They only let comics park there. And so you have that beautiful, one of the things I noticed is comics are either rich or broke. And there's no middle ground. So it's either really shitty cars or really super nice cars. And you see the transition, whenever somebody gets a special and their career takes off, they'll trade in that Datsun that they're driving and get them a Range Rover, or whatever. But there's no middle ground cars in that parking lot. It's either one of Rogan's, hot rod cars or in mine or anyway, people always show up and really nice entourage stuff.
Yeah.
or they limp in with the smoke coming out of the back. And, but if they keep pedaling the bike, man, maybe they get to get a new car someday. Oh, baby.
Well, you mentioned your mother passing earlier. One of the things that, and I had shared this with you, but one of the things I loved about your act was every time I saw you on stage, you always mentioned your mother. You brought her into the act, which I thought was just like a sweet kind of tribute to her.
Yeah, I'm a mama's boy.
And often when we would play golf, you would have a story about your mom. She had just moved here, and it was like, sometimes it was, like you were annoyed about something, and other times you're like, my mom's just kind of crazy. And this is like, you just share. It was like almost every time we played golf. And I was just really taken by that connection you have with your mother. And when she passed, you invited Peyton and I to the service, the memorial service, and just to see you up there.
I thought you crashed it. I don't remember.
Well, I somehow
that was the sweetest thing in the world that you and Peyton showed up at my mother's funeral. I was surprised. I wasn't that surprised because I know what a nice guy you are, and I know we're really good friends, but it was just the kindest gesture. That was a murderously tough day for me.
Yeah. Well, I just felt compelled, and I guess I normally wouldn't do it, but I felt like I never met your mother, which is a bit of a regret of mine. But I felt like I knew her. Like to know you is to know your mother. Like she was such a part of your life.
Yeah.
And even like just not even like even when you're a 67-year-old man, you can still be a mama's boy. And that just struck me like, oh shit. I know when she had some health issues. Like I remember we were playing golf that next day and you were super emotional. And I just felt like, God, it's just really special, the relationship you had with your mom. And I'm just curious, like, what was it like? Why do you think it was so special? How did your mom show up? That was,
well, uber supportive. She was a kind of a safe place with a fairly abusive father. And, she was always funny and non-judgmental. And she was, supportive of me going through a career that I started off making almost no money. And so she'd always slide me $100 or something, when I needed it. Have you ever heard the tomato story? About me, mother sending me tomatoes in Mexico. Have I told you that?
Yeah, but no one on here has heard it. So
you want me to tell it?
Fuck yeah.
All right. I was living in Mexico and Reynosa, Mexico, right across the border from McAllen, Texas. And I had a pottery concern. And I had gotten frustrated with stand-up. And they had tried to cut my money in this main set of clubs. They did cut my money in the main set of clubs. And I told them all to fuck off. And I went down to Mexico and I had a girlfriend that was making pottery with a mosaic tile application to it. And she'd sell it at art shows or fairs. And it would sell real fast, but it took her forever to make it. So I was like, well, why wouldn't you go down there, hire a room full of women and have that creator orchestrate them making it and then make it a little faster? Which wasn't a horrible idea, but it was. And because the product was heavy and fragile, which is a horrible combination. And so anyway, mother knew I was really, really struggling. And my mother, when she lived in Buda especially, the land she grew on was a peach orchard and a cattle ranch. And whatever that combination is made the best tomatoes that I've ever eaten in my life. And at Foxworthy, used to pester me. Goes, your mom's tomatoes in yet? Because we'd always send him a box of them. I eat them over the sink like an apple. No salt, no nothing like them.
Wow.
So I was struggling with my company down there, and on the weekends I was going out opening for Foxworthy, thank God, and before Blue Collar, and I come back. We had this long trip done to Spokane, and we were almost on a private plane, so we go back to Atlanta, and then I'd fly commercial back to Houston, back to McAllen, and then drive over. Well, I'd been gone for a couple of weeks, and so I was just checking the mail. And they bring out this soggy box, and I know it. Mother sent me the tomatoes, and I'm like, I know what it is. Just throw it away. And then I get in line and go back over to Mexico, which takes forever. And then Mother called on our dial Mexican phone line because your cell phone didn't work back then. It was too close to the border; they could block it.
Oh,
and how you doing and all that. And she goes, well, did you get the tomatoes? And I'm like, Mom, I've been on the road for 2 weeks and the tomatoes were rotten and I threw them away. And she goes, well, you got the $100 out of it, didn't you? And I'm like, Mom, I got to go. I got a bag in my car, drove back to the United States of America. This is how bad I needed $100. And found the post office, crawled in the dumpster, foraged around in there. I found that soggy ass box, opened it up, and there was a little envelope with $100 in it. And I went and had dinner. I mean, I owed my employees all the money I made, so I was just trying to make that company work and keep it funded. So I was broke, and it was a glorious thing,
Yeah.
But that's I've come a long way from that. But I like to remember that's where I was, and I like to tell that story. And Mother's tomatoes rocked. So she tried it again when she moved off that property, and something about the soil that wouldn't give them that perfect acidy tomato taste.
You were host, co-host, presenter, I guess a presenter at the Country Music Awards one year, and you brought her on stage with you.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't even remember the name of the award show. It was a new award show, the American Country Award. There's something and it was live from Vegas.
Live.
Yeah. And they asked me to do it, and I was in Vegas, so I was already there. And they said, we'd love for you to present an award. And I said, yeah, I'll do that. You know what? I'll do it if my mother can do it with me. We've done this kind of stuff before. Oh, okay. It always works out great.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, no, it's already scripted. We've already got this and that. Your mom. And I'm like, dude, country audiences love their mothers. And it lands when I take my mother on stage. It really does. They love that stuff. And you got to, and then I read the script and I was like, I don't know who wrote this, but it's awful. And I can't say it because I'm a professional comedian. And the guy goes, I wrote it. I'm like, well, I don't know whoever wrote it. I mean, I'm just saying I can't say it. If I was George Strait, a singer, I could say something not funny and people would laugh anyway. And they go, well, he's a singer. Well, I'm a comedian. And he goes, well, it's got to be done just like this. And we'll let your mother on, but we're going to do it. All right. And so I'm like, well, it's live television, dude. I can do whatever I want. There ain't jack shit you can do about it. And I don't ever want to do it again. So we went out there. And so Breakthrough Artist of the Year, that was our category. And I go, and the Breakthrough Artist of the Year is, and Mother opens the envelope and goes, the Rolling Stones, which got a big laugh, even from Jake Owen, who was supposed to get the award, which he did. And afterwards, I came off stage and the guy vibed me, like, well, I'm like, dude, that worked. Like, and he's like, you'll never do this show again. I'm like, bingo, dude, you got it.
Dude, what's it been like being back out on tour? I mean, you did a full slate of dates, I
did 38, I used to do 120, so it's not a full slate.
No, I say full slate.
It was still busy,
Yeah.
Before, when I retired, I'd be halfway through a show and I couldn't wait to get off stage. And that's when you need to quit. And I was bored with it. And I didn't really like the show I was doing that much, although the crowd liked it fine. There was no real pop in it. And I was like, yeah, I don't have what makes it fun for me. And so I thought it was a great time to retire. And I thought I'd done enough. And and I didn't know if I could ever get that power back in my show, and I didn't even know where it went or where it came from originally. I couldn't figure it out. And so I was perfectly okay with it. I thought it was a smart decision. And and then I would say Rogan talked me out of it, but he was never convinced that I was anything but tired. And I was tired.
Mm-hmm.
It was years and years of doing all the 120 plus, 145 one year, and just killing everybody. And I did that because I always thought it would come to an end, and I didn't know when it would, but it could be like tomorrow. So I better do all the work I can and stockpile some money, for when this thing collapses. And then it never did collapse. And I'm like, somebody's got to put a stop to this. I'm going to do it myself. And so, to get back out, it was different because, number one, the show is so much fun to do because I do have that, whatever it is, that power back, and I'm beating these crowds up hard, but I also have a different kind of sense of gratitude that they're still there, and I know it's not. I know a lot of it's because of Rogan and Tony and Segura, a lot of podcasts that I do, but it's easier to sell tickets now than it's ever been, and I could take the show to bigger venues, which I don't want to do. I've always kind of shied away. I've done some arenas before, and the sound's not that great. It's not that great an experience. So, in fact, I wouldn't do the big Moody Room. I'd rather do 4 in the ACL Live than do that big, just because it's a better experience for the customer and for me. But instead, I'd rather do 200 shows at the comedy club than do 4 at the big one. So I forgot what we were talking about.
But just being back on tour.
Oh yeah. It made me just grateful that it was all there and that I could read, that I had friends that were willing to say, hey, you deserve a break. Take a year off. And I took a full year that I didn't tour. Mm-hmm. And which was also great. And now I don't know how much longer I'm going to do it. But not forever, not forever. I'll probably do stand up in town for a long time, but going out on the road, maybe a couple more years. Mm-hmm. I still have so much fun in Vegas, and I'm playing the Cosmopolitan there. That's my only dates I've got the rest of the year besides the
July 20th, I believe, right?
I think so. And then there's one in October, and there's a couple of first 2 weeks of December. The Cosmo is a great place. And I've been at the Mirage. I was at the Mirage for 18 years. And I loved it there too. And I didn't want to ever leave, but they sold it. And so I had to leave. And now it's closed down. And I would look silly. He just won't leave. So I was kind of leery to go over to the Cosmopolitan. It's still MGM Grand. But it's about 1,000 seat bigger. I do one show instead of 2, which doesn't matter. I just as soon do 2, but for the same, for the same money, that's less workload. Great.
Sure.
Room, just insane. 4,000 square feet with wraparound balcony. And
really,
yeah, it's crazy. And I love the other one because it was a villa and their villas are on the ground floors, which I like better because you don't spend all your day looking out that window. But you do spend a lot of your day leaving that building, and it's so easy to do at the Mirage because the limo pulls up right next to your room, and you just hop in and go. And a lot of times, bigger stars that weren't even playing at the Mirage would stay in those villas because of the access. You don't have to go through the general population of the fucking prison, to get out of the building. And you do at the Cosmo, but it's still, I like it. So I'm happy with where it's all at. I'm really content. I spend some days trying to make up things in my head that I should be anxious about, but there really aren't any. I haven't had a drink in 3.5 years. And I'm not hiding a big coke problem. I don't have a secret family somewhere. I'm going, what is it that you're worried about, Ron? You're really kind of, your life's running pretty smooth, So I'm happy, I'm really, really just content, doing what I'm doing, and, my girlfriend's health has been a little iffy, and but that seems to be on the uptick a little bit. So,
yeah,
I don't know what else I could even wish for.
Well,
except to have my mother back.
Yeah.
But you don't get it back. So,
speaking of Jeannie, your girlfriend, she's prominent in the act. And there's some things that, I'm sure some women are like, I don't know if I'd feel great about that being part of the act.
Yeah.
How does that all go down?
The most, for the most part, the jokes aren't necessarily about her. They're just about a woman in my life. So, and she knows that. And mother didn't like some of my jokes either. She goes, that joke makes me sound stupid. And I'm like, just keep cashing the checks, mother. I'm not taking advice. Like I said the other day, I think I told you that the only person that ever asked me to quit doing a bit, and I did, was my son. And it was funny. But it wasn't true. I mean, the joke was, and I'll tell you, because it's not about him. Somebody told it to me. Or said something like it, and it was, I bought my son a house, which I did, and then so he quit staring at me, waiting for me to die. and in all fairness, he does not do that with me, and that's not who he is. And he's like, Dad, you make me look like I'm just, So I did. I quit doing the bit, and then I just did it for your listeners.
Yeah, they're gonna love it. So, do you let her know that this, like, you've got a new part of the, a new bit you're working on that includes her, or she gets to hear it for the first time when she goes and sees the show? Yeah, no, she hears it for the first time. So, but Jeannie is also a big fan of mine and has been forever. Her husband, late husband, used to take 8 people to the Mirage every year in December to see my show. He was a gigantic fan, and he was about 6'2", about like me, handsome fella, played a lot of golf, and his name was Ron. And I feel like I'm like a placeholder. She's got a type. But if you go over to her house, then I have all my albums are up there, and way. So she said that they had gone like 8 years in a row, just to Vegas just to see me, and holy shit. I'm like, wow, I bet he didn't see this coming. How did you guys meet? We met at a charity function in Beverly Hills. I was... Okay, a dating app. No, you're good. I was waiting you out. I was there the night where you headlined at the Mothership, and her son was there. Right. Yeah, that one was that was a tricky. Yeah, but you know what? That he was there when I said it originally, and he laughed at it really hard. He's got a great sense of humor. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we were sitting next to him and his wife, Peyton and I were, and Maddie, get down. Can you? Would you share that? No. Okay. No. It's just. Well, I guess I can. I was playing golf with my girlfriend's youngest son, who I think probably at the time was about 38 or something like that, and we're playing at a course that he grew up on. A very privileged life. They owned a construction company that he still runs to this day, and he beat me by 2 shots. I'm 68. He's 30. Or I was probably 65 at the time, and he's just needling me about it. And he's got a really hot wife. And I said,
I said, what are y'all up to tonight? And he goes, I'm going to be sitting around the house thinking about how I'm going to spend your money, old man. I just met him. And he goes, what are y'all doing tonight? I said, I'm going to be thinking about your wife while I'm fucking your mother. And I'm like, and it took a second, but he howled. He goes, well, it was funny. And yeah, it's true too. So, but you know what? He loves it. His wife loves the joke because I call her super hot, which she is pretty hot. And Jeannie doesn't care. You know, it's just funny. You know, I was never sure if I would ever do it on stage because it was just kind of abrupt, but the crowds love it. So
I was sitting right next to him and I was like, I didn't see it coming. I hadn't heard it before. I was like, oh shit. Okay, let's go. I'd love to hear. I was listening to some YouTube clips the other day and different comics were talking about bombing and kind of what it feels like. I'm curious if there are comics that you saw coming up throughout your whole career and they were talented, but they bombed so hard one night that they couldn't recover and it was just over for them.
I don't think anything. Does that happen at all? I think bombing's way more common than that. I mean,
well, I felt like, yeah, you're going to have that, but like there was one that was it was just too much.
No, I've never seen that happen. Some people, what I consider bombing, they would consider just fine. And so a lot of people, I mean, I don't see what keeps them going. Because if I had one set like that, I would quit. But they're like, they hear nothing but that little bit of laughter that they got and they're okay with it.
Okay.
It's hard to discourage some people. But I did a joke that ate it the other night and I was so sure that this joke was going to work. And I'd been thinking about it for 3 days because I don't write anything down.
Yeah.
And
can you explain that for people? Because I think that's pretty uncommon.
Yeah, it's a learning disability, a brain dysfunction that I guess, I don't know. But I've been this way my whole life. And so I've been doing stand-up. I've been a writer for 37 years and I don't own a pen. And I don't have one note. I know people that have a closet full of old notebooks full of things that they wrote, and I don't have a thing. I have a set list somewhere that took me a while to figure out, and that's all I have. So, and it's just the way my brain works. And I used to hate it about myself, but I got to where I would just go, you know what? I've got other qualities that are great. I can do it anyway. I'm like an idiot savant because you should be able to write things down and you shouldn't be able to do stand-up comedy if you can't do that.
Yeah. So maybe it's a fucking superpower, instead of like having this, like,
but I just had to get okay with it,
Yeah.
I also lose things really easy. And I mean, valuable things. And I had to get over that too. Just, it's, you can sit around and worry about it. You can just, okay, this is just the way I am. And that's got to be okay, right? Because I can't change it, and I wish I could, and I've tried everything. But when was I telling you that story?
You talking about a bit that ate it.
That ate it, yeah.
That you were sure.
Yeah, it was. I was positive that it was going to be 2 laughs. One was going to be a substantial house laugh on the setup because the setup was so good, and then the punchline was going to bring down the house, and it was going to get such a laugh that Rogan was going to have to rename the club. And, he'd be going, there's just no way that you can still call this something besides Ron White's Comedy Club because of that one joke. So the joke was about renaming the Washington Commanders or the Washington Redskins. And what made me think of it was I was at a Longhorn game and I was just thinking about, I was pretty high and I was thinking about just how Roman it is to be in a big thing like that with these battles and the thing and going on. It was just nothing's changed that much. It's still, people still love to watch those kinds of spectacles, and so I was thinking that, God, I was thinking of a name for the commanders, and I'm like, what, they ought to call them the Christians, and Washington Christians. That sounds good. And then you got a global audience, right? And then when Detroit comes to Washington, that's where I thought the first laugh would be, because people have already made that Christians Lions in the arena connection. Yeah. When I was a kid, there wasn't a Bible, but we had a storybook, and it showed the Lions eating the Christians. It always stuck in my head. And when people talk about oppression, I'm like, yeah, well, we got fed to lions and they ate our people. That's just as bad, Didn't happen to me, but that didn't happen to you either. And so I thought the first laugh was going to come then when I said when Detroit comes to town. Because when the Christians and the Lions go back at it, this is, and that was going to bring the house down.
And so when it doesn't, is it like
not a peep?
And then there's no chance for the second one.
So I did it anyway.
But there is it.
But
like,
no, there was no chance because they didn't have that storybook, and it's not as prevalent in their heads, or it's not funny. Which is what Rogan said. He claimed that it wasn't funny, and then they proved that he was right. But I was so completely wrong about it that 250 people agreed 100% that it was not funny. And then when the second punchline got there, and it was the same echoey silence, and it wasn't like I was having a bad set. I was having a great set. They were just waiting for me to say something funny again. Yeah, and they kept waiting in it because they heard that. And they're like, no, that can't be it. And like, no, that was it. That was it. So, and it made me laugh because I was just so wrong. It was hilarious. And then I'm like, did I leave part of that out? Let me go back through it. That was just not funny. And what
was the second part? I'm sorry, I had cut you off as you were saying it.
Oh, well, first I was going to hint that just by saying Detroit, that the Lions and the Christians, and I was going to say it. Yeah. First I was going to set it up. That was going to work for part of the people. Oh, yeah. But the second was going to work for everybody, and then carried off, new title.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with it. When you say it, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that, but it's very deep in the memory recesses.
Yeah, that's where most people are storing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I thought, I could keep doing it until I figured it out. And I'm like, why fight everybody? If everybody doesn't like it, why don't I just move on? So if you come out, don't sit around waiting for that Christians and Lions closer. It never came around.
All right, well, you've got to go pretty soon. I'm going to wrap with just one last question, and it has to do with kind of what you just talked about, like the kind of anatomy of writing a joke. Like you have this thing, Christians, and that came to your mind at some point, and then what's the process for it to get into your hour-long set? To, as you say, ripen on the vine. What does that look like to ripen on the vine?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I had a joke that was on an album, and it was, if I can remember how it goes, it was about health, about me being healthier, and it was my wife bought me a bicycle thinking I might ride it. It's for sale. And it's a great deal. It's got 750 yards on it. It had 300 yards on it when I bought it. It was a demo, and I put the other 450 yards on it myself. And that was the whole joke, and that was on an album. But I kept doing the joke, and I think it was my road manager that gave me the idea. And that was, which made it a joke, which is that if you'd like to buy the bicycle, just go to my house in Beverly Hills, and it's 400 yards from there. So, yeah. Right. So that's the whole joke. So I didn't even know that needed it. I mean, it was just a small laugh piece, that turned into a big laugh piece when the final piece was on there. Well, you can't really find that staring at a piece of paper. I can't. So I take whatever those ideas are, and I go straight to the stage with them. And that's why I got to have that spot down there, because I can't write it down for whatever retarded reason. And I know you've got people out there going, what's wrong? What do you mean you can't write it down? You can't write it down? You can't write? No, I can write. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's a mental block. I was hoping I'd walk away from my ayahuasca thing going, I just bought 3 notebooks and filled them up with ideas and thoughts and feelings. But no, that didn't come to me, but I'm going to go back.
Hell yeah. For next episode, we are going to talk. I'd love to talk about your ayahuasca experience.
I wish I had more time today, but I have a split broken tooth in my mouth, and I've got to go get it fixed.
Well, let's get it fixed.
All right.
Buddy. Love having you on here. Love being your boy and playing golf and all the things.
We've been able to find a great friendship, and I dig it too. And we'll keep going. Well, and we're gonna be team right tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
All right. I'll be down there by 8.
Let's go.
All right.
All right.